Okay, so yesterday or the day before, we talked about the Midwinter remaster and how I couldn't really figure out the algorithms that ran the enemy, and I had to get the graphics by basically doing screenshots. So I put Fable on that, and overnight, as I said in that other post and on Reddit, it decoded everything. And we're not talking about decompile, compile. We're talking about decoding the algorithms so they're usable in another format. Then I'm able to take that decoded algorithm to then run the enemy in the Unreal version of Midwinter, which is the remastered version of that game. There were a lot of comments and interest in that. And so what I decided to do was put the DOS game decoder into a kit, and I'll release that on GitHub when it's ready. But in order to kind of prove that this is actually a thing that you can do with Fable, and actually a lot of Opus 4.8 can do this too, is that I decoded and recreated another game called Pool of Radiance, an old SSI gold box game. I basically asked Fable, find me a old DOS game from that era that doesn't have a lot of action 3D graphics, that hasn't been decoded before, hasn't been remastered, and let's go ahead and, using the game's manual and the clue book maybe from the game, go in and figure out the code that it's written in. It's probably some proprietary version, and it's probably locked. So I want you to go in and find all of the logic in the game, find the animations in the game, find the artwork in the game, and put it all together in a new interface, playable, and then with the code exposed and editable in some other format for Windows. And I think it just picked HTML, but I'm going to show you then some of the functions that it created. I've got in this video, in the description, all of the tools that Claude used, how I was able to not just do agent switching, but actually, maybe something that's new to people, I was able to do model switching, to have one model do parts of the work and another model do other parts of the work. You'll notice that the common problem that a lot of people have is this warning that comes up from Fable 5 when it feels like you're going to break somebody's copyright, or you've gone around some invisible border that it doesn't want to go past. So I'm not doing this to make money to sell these games. I'm doing this as another way to preserve these old games. Here is where you can find the DOS decoder kit, and you'll notice also how quickly I did this. So let me explain how I did this today. I actually did it while I was golfing. I gave Claude the task of recreating Pool of Radiance, and then I went to golf. We had a pretty good round, although we went pretty fast. There were a lot of birdies. Just kidding. By hole number 4, it had basically decoded the logic of the game. And as we progressed through the other holes, by the back 9, for instance, it was basically done. And it said, I don't have anything else to do. So I said, well, work on how this decoding task is going to inform this kit, this decoding kit that we're going to release and discuss on Reddit. It showed me some of its initial graphics, and by hole 14 or 16, I told it that the graphics looked horrible, and so at that point we had to invoke Fable to do a better decode. So this is the actual gameplay of Pool of Radiance, recreated from the disk file source code Decode. So let's play the game. I'm going to press a key. Here's where you start with your team. If you've seen this game, any games like this, these are old SSI gold box games. This is exactly how they looked. We're going to press the M key down here to move around, and now we're moving in the three-dimensional world. This is basically how it looked. Oop, there was a doorway there. Let me see if I can go to the doorway. Okay, I just opened the door and passed through. I can view my team. Anyway, you can see that this looks exactly like the old game. I'm playing it here, HTML version. The next question is whether I can reproduce this using the method that Claude created and decode Curse of the Azure Bonds without Fable 5, now that Fable 5 has been decommissioned. I would challenge anybody to tell me that this is not the actual game from SSI being played. This is actually the reproduction. And I will say that it's pretty amazing what we're going to be able to do with this technology. For instance, the game pool of Radiance, maybe it had some bugs in it. Maybe you want to fix those bugs. Maybe you want to create scenarios for it if you're a modder. Maybe you want to just experience Pool of Radiance as an open world game in Unreal Engine, or port it to some other device like a phone. This is kind of almost like translating a novel to a different language, allows additional people to experience what this was like. And I would note that these old DOS games are much more like novels, whereas the newer games can often be just like a movie. So the overall thrust of this effort is to further preserve these old DOS games and allow more people to enjoy them.